If you're going to jiu-jitsu 3 to 4 times a week, lifting on top of that, and you're still getting smashed every time you roll, there's a reason for that. And it's not because you need to jump on gear or you need a better pre-workout. It's because you're following the wrong blueprint for grappling strength. Tap in and listen to this entire episode if you want to get the simple blueprint that builds real jiu-jitsu strength. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Settled Strength Podcast. Today's episode is all about how to basically overcome the things that have been holding you back from being able to be brutally strong as a grappler. And this kind of spurred up from a message that I got on Instagram a little while ago. Someone had reached out to me and they had said man, I need your help. I've been lifting for 2 years. I literally haven't gotten stronger. I feel like I just get smashed all the time when I train. And the message honestly caught me by surprise because I was thinking what? You've been lifting for 2 years and you're telling me you have literally gained zero strength. And he was saying well, no, I've gotten a little bit stronger, but it's not doing anything for my jiu-jitsu. The strength has not transferred well to how I roll on the mat. And so I asked him, I said, well, hey, are you following a structured training program? And he's like, no, should I? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. That would be the first thing that I would suggest that you do. And what's really interesting is that it kind of opened my eyes to this idea that, wow, I think for me, I with the people I talk to and the athletes that I coach, I think I just assume sometimes that everyone just goes into the gym with a plan and a mission on how they're going to get stronger. And unfortunately, that's not always the case. And there's a lot of grappling athletes out there that know that they need to go to the gym and start getting stronger, but they aren't seeing that actually transfer to what they do on the mat. When I first got started in jiu-jitsu, that was in 2017. And when I first got into jiu-jitsu, there really wasn't a whole lot of strength and conditioning content for grappling sports, or just combat sports in general. There's a little bit of stuff out there from guys like Phil DeRue, the guys at Westside Barbell, and a couple other places. Joel Jameson kind of was killing it on the conditioning side. But outside of that, there weren't a whole lot of resources. And so at the time, the jiu-jitsu community was still kind of talking about no, you don't need strength. It's all technique, bro. And it's okay, well, you can have all the technique in the world. You try to armbar someone that's 350 pounds, it's going to be pretty freaking tough. But what's been awesome is that as time has gone on, and now we're in 2025, there's been a huge change in the jiu-jitsu industry where pretty much every single jiu-jitsu athlete out there at least understands that building strength is a good thing. Getting stronger is a good thing. It's going to help you perform better on the mat, and it's going to help decrease the risk of injury. So that's awesome. We've already gotten over that first big hurdle of getting grappling athletes to recognize hey, we got to get strong. I always tell people that the number one thing you can do off the mat to improve your performance on the mat is going to be to get stronger. And no one ever lost a match because they were too strong. No one ever got injured because they were too strong. So strength training is important. And so kind of this next hurdle that I want to help you overcome is if you're in that position where you recognize okay, Coach Jay, I know I'm supposed to be lifting. I know I'm supposed to be getting stronger. I'm going to the gym 2 to 4 days a week. I'm doing these exercises that I say on Instagram. I still get smashed at jiu-jitsu. I'm still getting injured. I'm still getting banged up. I don't really see how this strength workout that I'm doing is helping me at all on the mat. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Really what it comes down to, if you're having a hard time seeing the strength training that you do in the gym and you're having a hard time seeing it transfer to what you do on the mat, it's because you're following the wrong strength blueprint for jiu-jitsu or for any grappling or combat sport. Now, there's one thing that I wanted to talk about on a big reason why this is happening, and the harsh truth of it is that most grapplers in the gym, they lift like white belts. And if you've been doing jiu-jitsu for any period, any length of time, you have either gone through this period of training yourself or you have watched other people go through this phase of training where these white belts come in, they're super excited about jiu-jitsu, they're super eager, and they're always looking up these crazy moves on Instagram and on YouTube. So all they care about is buggy chokes and some crazy goofy bicep slicer from the back. And I know sometimes it will work, but it's like, okay, you got a buggy choke, but your freaking guard retention is terrible. Or like, yeah, when you drill the move, that bicep slicer, like it works then, but your back control is so terrible and you can never make it happen in a live context. And so we all know what that's like, right? Like I know I was definitely that guy at one point, and I've watched a lot of other white belts do the same thing, where they get really excited about these fun moves that they find on social media or these fun moves that they find on YouTube, and they'd start to try to build out their jiu-jitsu skill base, if you will, based on that random collection of I would go as far to say like gimmicky techniques. And unfortunately, I think that same thought process happens with grappling athletes going into the gym. They're on social media, they see all these different fitness influencers and like, wow, that looks cool, that looks cool, that looks cool. And so they start kind of creating these hodgepodge workouts of all these random exercises, all these random training philosophies, and it's not really having a transfer to what they do on the mat because there's no system, there's no progression. It's like, you can't really build a great foundation of elite grappling skills if you're just following all these moves that you find on Instagram. The same applies for strength training. You can't build this great foundation of strength and athleticism if all you're doing is following these random exercises and these random workouts on social media. And so the first thing, the harsh truth of it is, the first thing that you need to overcome if you're struggling to have the strength training that you do in the gym transfer to what you do on the mat, you got to stop treating strength training like you're a white belt. You got to take it one step further and actually start to build out a plan. Now, when it comes to the biggest strength training mistakes that grappling athletes make, that's definitely one of them, like going into the gym like a white belt. I should say, like, I'll make this point about white belt mentality. I think white belt mentality is super important. You guys have probably heard that before. Like, anytime you're going into something new, just treat it like you're a white belt. You're there to learn. You're not there to try to like boost your ego or anything like that. And I think that is really important. But in this context, white belt mentality might be a little bit of a bad thing. Like, don't go into the gym with the white belt mentality that you just got a bunch of random exercises from Instagram and you're just going to spam those exercises and hope for the best and see what happens. So, but when it comes to the three mistakes that I see that are happening most commonly, that all kind of fit underneath that umbrella of being a white belt in the gym. The first one is training with no plan of progression. When you are a white belt in Jiu Jitsu and you go to class, you really have no plan, and that's totally okay. You don't know anything. You don't know, maybe you know like one or two techniques that you saw on YouTube, but other than that, you really don't know anything. And you have an instructor, or at least if they're a good instructor, they have a plan for that class. They have a plan on the techniques or the movements that they're going to teach you and or the skills that they want to help you develop. And they have a plan on how that is going to progress over time. Now, if you go to the gym and you hire a personal trainer or you work with a one-on-one coach, they do the same thing for you. You are kind of coming into this position where you're like, hey, I don't have a plan of progression. I don't have a system of how I'm going to develop these athletic traits. So I'm trusting you as my coach to help me do that. And any good coach would be able to go in and say like, okay, hey, these are the things that we're doing today for this individual workout. This is how it's going to progress going forward. And in the next workout, we're going to build off of what we did in today's workout. And so a big mistake that grapplers make is that they go into the gym with no plan of progression, mainly because like most people don't work with a one-on-one coach. Most people don't have a personal trainer, or at least I should say most people that do jiu-jitsu kind of just go into the gym by themselves and they just like train willy-nilly. Like they just like blindfold themselves and they like try to throw darts at a dartboard with a blindfold on. That's kind of how they're training. It's very random. It doesn't have a plan of progression. And if you really want to be successful in developing brutal grappling strength, packing on slabs of muscle, and building your conditioning to a point where you never gas out, you have to have some sort of plan of progression on how you're going to do that. The other thing, or like the second mistake that I would suggest or that I would mention, is that there's no structure in the training, and it's just, random workouts that are giving these athletes random results. So if you're someone that goes into the gym and you're like, okay, let's see, I'm recording this on a Tuesday, or a Thursday, so it's Thursday. Typically, I kind of like go into the gym, warm up a little bit, don't really know what I'm warming up for, and I just look around at what machines are open, and I just do a few sets, and that's it. Now, something is always better than nothing, but there's definitely a lot of things that we can do to further optimize and improve the outcome of that particular workout. And if you go in and just do a bunch of random stuff, you're gonna get out of it a bunch of random results. So there's something that I use with a lot of my highly competitive athletes called the VIP method, and that stands for vision, intention, and purpose. So one thing that you can do to not have random workouts that give you random results and to also have a plan of progression is to use the VIP method. So when you go into the gym, you want to have a clear vision. A vision is different than a goal. When you sign up for a jiu-jitsu competition, everyone has the same goal. Everyone's goal is to win. You can go in the bullpen and you can like put the microphone in their face and say like, what's your goal for today? And they're like, oh, my goal today is to smash. My goal today is to win. Claim that gold medal, stand on top of the podium. I'm hunting for the submissions, blah, 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 blah. Everyone says the same thing. When you go to these press conferences, whether it's at like Who's Number One or even like some of the UFC press conference, everyone has the same goal. They're like, I'm here to win. That's all I'm here for. Like having a goal, like no offense, is nothing special because a lot of times so many people have the exact same goal. The difference is, the thing that makes it individual for you is the vision. A vision takes your goal and takes it one step further. A vision helps you kind of fill in the roadmap of how you're going to get to that destination point or how you're going to reach that goal. So if you go into a competition, let's stick with that example, your goal may still be to win first place, snatch up that gold medal, and smash your bracket. That's your goal. But the vision on how you're going to get there is going to look very different from you compared to your competitors. For you, that might mean like, hey, like I wrestled in college, I'm going to rely pretty heavily on my wrestling to fill in that vision of how I'm going to get to the podium and claim that gold medal. Maybe you didn't wrestle in college, and maybe you have zero wrestling experience and only do jiu-jitsu. So your vision is going to look different because that means that, hey, my wrestling kind of sucks. So I'm going to make sure I do as minimal wrestling as possible and try to sit to guard, enter into the legs, and take somebody's ankle or knee home. So your vision is going to be individual to you. And another way you can think of this is like, if you have a friend that moved and you're going to go check out his new crib and he's like, hey, I live on Main Street. Or he sends you the address and the address is on Main Street. And you get in your car, you start driving, and you drive around for 2 hours looking for his address or looking for his house. And then you call him, you're like, hey bro, I can't find your house. And he's like, what do you mean? He goes, you said you lived on Main Street. He's like, yeah, I gave you my address. That's on Main Street. Did you put it in the maps? And you're like, no, I didn't. I was just kind of looking for Main Street. It's like, what are you doing? Like you got to be able to plug in the address into the maps to show you the roadmap of how you're going to get to that end destination. So having a vision is very similar. So VIP method, V stands for vision. Second letter, I, stands for intention. Intention is very important whether you're training on the mat or whether you're training in the gym. Intention is going to be the driver of your focus for whatever you're doing in the gym. So if your goal is to, or I should say, like part of your, if you're a grappling athlete and you want to get brutally strong, that's part of your goal. Is like, hey, I want to get brutally strong. I want to be able to like body lock people and not have anybody escape. I want to have body triangles that just like crush people's ribs. I want to be able to put in submissions that are super, super tight and dangerous. If that's your goal and you want to get stronger for that goal, and part of your vision includes like, okay, I got to go to the gym, I got to do these strength workouts, your intention is what you're going to be doing in each of those individual sessions, where the intention for one workout might be, hey, this is a heavy, strength-focused, lower body workout. That's my intention. If I'm setting my intention for that, I'm going to make sure my lower body is feeling really, really good and warmed up. I might even do some extra mobility work because I got ankle locked last night and in the no-gi class, and my ankles are a little bit sore. So I'm going to do a little bit of ankle work to make sure that I'm ready for the intention of doing the best I can in this lower body workout. Maybe you're doing a dynamic effort workout where the intent is to move fast and violently explosive. That is going to be a different intention than the strength workout. So setting the right intentions for each training session allows you to get more out of every single workout and out of every single training session. And I think that's super important because a lot of times grapplers will go in and if you're listening to this and you're having a hard time seeing the transfer from the strength work that you do in the gym to showing up on the mat, it may be because you're missing your vision and you're not bringing much intention into your workouts. I've seen it time and time again where guys go into the gym and they're just kind of looking around and just kind of like figuring it out as they go. And they're like, well, I guess I'll do a couple bicep curls. And it's like, oh, hey, that machine's open. I don't even know what it does. I'll go over there and do that. And I saw this a lot when I was working at a commercial gym in high school and in college. And that was a very interesting experience because you see a ton of people go through that gym and I watched how a lot of people trained. And there were a lot of people that I could just tell were training with no intention. And it showed in their results. Like they signed up, on January 1st or like right after Christmas. And like, I'm super excited to get in shape. You watch them train and it's like, buddy, that's like, you got to bring some more intention and intent behind what you're doing because I can tell like you're mentally just not into it right now. On the other hand, there were people who made some like pretty incredible transformations and they brought intent. They brought intention into every single workout. Like you could definitely see them working and it showed in their results over time, which I thought was very, very fascinating. So VIP method, V stands for vision, I stands for intention, and the last letter P stands for purpose. It's important that you understand the purpose of what you're doing. That's a huge reason why I even started this podcast, was to help you understand the purpose behind all the different things that I use with the athletes that I coach and the other grapplers that I'm helping around the world. I want you to understand the purpose of why we do certain exercises, why we lift heavy, why we roll hard, and all of that stuff. So that way you can ultimately get better results. Now, I'm not saying you need to like go back to college or change your major to be a PhD in exercise physiology. I'm not even a PhD in anything, but I think it's important that you understand a little bit of the purpose of what you're doing. If we were to tie this to a Jiu Jitsu example, you may look at like a triangle choke and think like, why do I have to move the arm on, when like people are defending triangles and they like reach around and kind of like try to put their arm behind their back and hide their arm. If you're someone that doesn't understand the purpose of why we want to bring the arm across the body, you may still be able to finish a lot of triangles, but at the same time, it's like, hey, if you understood why that's so important, it's going to make it it's going to create a greater incentive for you to focus on that. So that way, you throw up that triangle, they start defending, you're like, you know what? I got to shut off both sides of their neck. I'm going to bring that arm across the center line, across their body so I can finish the strangle. The more you know the purpose of what you're doing, the better intent you're going to be able to put into those training sessions. Ultimately, the better results you're going to get out of those training sessions. And so even though the VIP method is something that I originally started using with the highly competitive athletes that I was coaching, I think this works for anybody. If you're someone who's like myself, I would consider myself an extreme hobbyist, I should say, or like not even extreme hobbyist, but like a super hobbyist. I guess you could call it that. But I was training this morning, and there was a guy there that I've trained with maybe once before. I think this is the second time I had trained with him. Anyway, he's like, hey, Jay, do you compete? And I was like, nah, man, I don't compete anymore. I used to compete, but not anymore. And he was just saying like, oh, why not? And I just told him like, well, like I honestly just freaking love training. Like training is so much fun, and I love lifting heavy. I love rolling hard. I don't necessarily love competing. And so I say all that because if you're someone who's like me, you're like, you got a full-time job, or maybe you have two jobs, and you're trying to balance like, okay, I love training, like it's so freaking fun to like go, slaying some heavy ass weights in the gym. It's so freaking fun to go roll hard with your boys at Jiu Jitsu. Even though the VIP method is something that I originally used with my athletes who are prepping for competition, you can very easily apply the VIP method to your own life. So I encourage you, as you're listening to this podcast, to think about, what does the VIP method mean for me? What is my vision? For me personally, I'll just be fully transparent. I want to be the freakiest athlete I could possibly be. So I want to be super dangerous at jiu-jitsu. I want to be brutally strong. I want to be jacked out of my mind. I want to have amazing conditioning. I want to be able to sprint. I want to be able to kind of like jump into any sport and feel physically capable to do that. I'm not saying that I'm going to do well, but I at least am physically capable of at least trying it. Like earlier this year, part of my vision that I had was like every month, I want to try something new athletically that is unrelated to anything I've ever done. So like I've basically grown up in the gym. I've grown up wrestling, grown up doing jiu-jitsu. So I can't just do like, oh, well, I've never tried judo. It's like, that doesn't count. Like that's way too close to jiu-jitsu and wrestling. Or I can't say like, well, I've never officially done high rocks. It's like, that's too close to CrossFit. You've already done CrossFit. And so I really wanted to push myself to try these different athletic pursuits that were like really far away from anything I've experienced before. And two of those things were rock climbing and surfing. I rock climbed a ton early on this year, had a blast while I was doing it. And then my wife surprised me for our anniversary earlier this year with surfing lessons. And within both of those, my vision for the year, I didn't even know I was going to do those things, but my vision for the year was, I just want to be physically capable to jump into any new sport, to jump into any new physical endeavor, and just be capable of doing it. So even though like I kind of sucked at rock climbing, I still suck, but I'm a little bit better. Even though I super suck at surfing, but I did stand up a couple times. Physically, like I was tired afterwards, but I felt okay. So even if you're not a competitor, even if you're not someone who's like training for ADCC trials, you're going to every single competition every single week, if that's not you, that's totally fine. This podcast can still be beneficial for you. If you're someone who just freaking loves to train with intensity, someone who just loves to train with passion, the VIP method, vision, intention, and purpose, can still be beneficial for you. It all starts with clarifying your vision, then set your intentions for every single training session that you go into, and then over time, push yourself to try to understand the purpose of why you're doing the things that you're doing. Understand why we're doing these particular sets and reps. Understand why we're structuring our nutrition in this very particular way, and continuing to educate yourself going forward. Now, the third mistake that I see a lot of grappling athletes make under this umbrella of going to the gym like a white belt is that oftentimes grappling athletes that aren't seeing the strength work that they do transfer to what they do on the mat. It's often because they're just too fatigued to get a good strength stimulus. Remember, it's not about what you do in the gym or on the mat that leads to progress. It's about what you do and can recover from. So if you're going to jiu-jitsu multiple times per week and you're trying to lift in the gym to try to get stronger for jiu-jitsu, but your sleep is terrible, your nutrition's terrible, it's no wonder that you're not seeing the transfer of the strength work to what you do on the mat, because your body has to go through the stimulus recovery adaptation process. You go to the gym, you lift some heavy ass weights, that is the training stimulus. You don't get stronger when you're lifting weights, you get stronger through the recovery and adaptation after you lift weights. So you get that training stimulus where you're lifting those weights, you go through the proper recovery process. If you skip that process or you cut that process short, it's going to severely limit how much gains you can make from that workout. So if you do a crazy heavy workout in the gym, getting a great strength stimulus, but you're not following it up with the proper nutrition, you're not following it up with the proper sleep, it's going to be really hard for your body to make those adaptations for you to be stronger when you go to step on the mat in the future. So if you're a grappling athlete and you're struggling with like, man, you're like that guy that reached out to me earlier last month where he said like, dude, I've been lifting for 2 years and I literally haven't gotten stronger. Like I keep getting smashed at jiu-jitsu. Double check and kind of look back at how you've been training and see if you've been making any of those 3 mistakes. Have you been following no plan of progression? Like you got no plan, no direction when you're going into the gym and you're just following a bunch of random workouts that you find on social media. If that's you and you haven't been seeing progress, you got to make some changes, dog. You got to follow a training program. You got to follow a plan of progression that's going to take you from where you are to the place that you ultimately want to be and fulfill that vision. If you're making the mistake of not setting the right intentions for your workouts, where you're just going into the gym and you're like, I don't even know what my intention is today. My intention is to be out of here in 60 minutes. And if that's you and you're not seeing progress, you got to make some changes. Start to better understand the why behind the exercises, the why behind the sets and reps and the conditioning and nutrition and all that stuff. So that way you can go into every training session with the right intention. You can go into the gym on a Thursday and know like, hey, today is going to be my max effort upper body session. I know what I'm going to do. I know the sets and reps. I know the exercises. I have the program in front of me. I'm going to get a really good warm up. I'm going to make sure I'm properly hydrated, make sure I got my pre-workout, L-carnitine, ATP, phosphocreatine, all that fun stuff. I'm going to smash this workout and then I'm going to recover hard afterwards. Make sure you set the right intentions for the work that you do on the mat. You're going into the training session knowing like today is a little bit more of a skill development day. I'm really focusing on these things that I've been having trouble with over the last couple weeks. I can do okay when I'm passing someone's guard, but I'd find myself like, if I can stay out of closed guard, I can pass. But when people put me in closed guard, I'm cooked. I don't know what to do. So that's my intention. I'm going to purposely start in closed guard in some of these training rounds and try to fight out of it and work for the pass. The better you're able to set your intentions for each workout in the gym and training session on the mat, the better results you're going to get from the work that you do. And then the third mistake, if you're someone who's been putting in a lot of work in the gym and on the mat and you're not really seeing the transfer, you're not seeing those strength gains show up when you're rolling hard on the mat, you got to check your recovery. If you're too fatigued, if you're too banged up, if you're too burned out to get a good strength stimulus, and then you're not even recovering enough from the little strength stimulus you did get, it's no wonder that your body's not getting stronger, and it's no wonder that you're not seeing that manifest itself on the mat. So remember, train hard and recover harder. So earlier in this episode, I talked about how if you stuck around to the end of the episode, you were going to get a complete blueprint on how to build a real grappling strength. And I think what's really cool about this is that this blueprint is something that like pretty much anyone can get started with, and you can make little tweaks and modifications to this blueprint to fit your needs as an athlete. I'll also go as far to say that this blueprint really is the backbone for the Grappler Accelerator training program that we have inside the Strength Matrix. If you want to kickstart your grappling athleticism in just 30 days, check out the Grappler Accelerator training program. It's 100% free. It's always been free. It may not be free in the future, but I can say right now, as of today, it's free. Go check it out, thestrengthmatrix.com/grappler. It comes with everything that you need to kickstart your grappling athleticism, to start getting brutally strong, stimulate muscle growth, and begin developing your conditioning to a point where you never gas out. It comes with a full strength and conditioning program, simple and clean diet guide, super sleep toolkit, recovery protocols, and everything else in between. And so this blueprint that I'm going to go over really is the backbone of that training program. If you're already going through Grappler Accelerator, as I'm reading through this blueprint, you're going to start to notice like, oh yeah, that's in Grappler Accelerator, that's in Grappler Accelerator, and all that good stuff. So when we talk about a basic template for developing athleticism as a grappler, we got to start with strength. Strength is the bedrock. Strength is the foundation. Strength really is, I will go as far to say that strength is the most important athletic quality ever. Even if you're an insane endurance athlete, strength is still most important. As strength improves, the potential to develop other athletic qualities goes up. And strength is the foundation. So if you think about like what Louis Simmons always said about how a pyramid is only as tall as the width of its base. If you have a very little base of strength, the peak of your athleticism, it's going to be pretty short, dog. It's not going to be the Pyramid of Giza, if you know what I'm saying. But if you take some time to build out that strength, you build a big, robust foundation of strength, you have so much more room to build up a much higher peak of athleticism. And that's what I encourage you to do. So with this basic strength template, what I would suggest is 2 to 4 compound lifts per workout. And what do I mean by compound lifts? I mean big multi-joint exercises that work through a large range of motion. There are several different movement patterns that kind of fit within those compound lifts, and just pick 2 to 4 of those to do in every workout. And those would include squat, hip hinge, lunges. On lunges, you want to make sure that you're lunging forwards and backwards, but also lunging side to side as well. You got rotation movements in there. You got horizontal pulling. You got horizontal pressing, vertical pulling, vertical pressing. You want to make sure that as you're picking those 2 to 4 compound lifts per workout, that you're pulling from that list. When people ask me like, hey, Coach Jay, like what's the best strength exercise for jiu-jitsu? I basically just run through that list and I tell them like, there's no such thing as the quote unquote best exercise, but the list of the best exercises would be squat, hip hinge, lunge, rotation, vertical pressing, vertical pulling, horizontal pressing, horizontal pulling, boom. And there's tons of different variations that you can do within that. So you don't always, for the squat, you don't always have to do a barbell back squat. You can do front squats, you can do belt squats, you can do specialty bar squats, box squats, tempo squats, kettlebell squats. Like the variations are endless. Same thing with the hip hinge. If hip hinge movements could be like any sort of deadlift or any sort of good morning. If you get a lot of lower back pain when you do a conventional deadlift, that's fine. Like just don't do it then. Pick a different style of deadlift that doesn't give you lower back pain. So the basic strength template is going to be 2 to 4 compound lifts per workout. And as far as sets and reps go for all of those compound lifts, it's going to be 4 to 6 sets of 4 to 6 reps. That is kind of like the most tried and true strength development rep ranges. When you look at most successful training programs, you look at 5-3-1, you look at strong lifts, you look at Grappler Accelerator, you look at the Foundations program and the Strength Matrix, you know what I'm saying? The strength component, like when we look at the sets and reps that tend to lead to like the most consistent strength gains, it tends to be within 4 to 6 sets of 4 to 6 reps per exercise. Now, as far as how heavy you should go for these exercises, you should train up to the point of technical failure. So don't go beyond the point of technical failure. If you're doing some sort of squat and you're doing 4 to 6 sets of 4 to 6 reps, and on the last set, like your knees are buckling in, your back is rounding, the bar's like tipping sideways, like you're done. Like don't do any like crappy reps like that. You want to try to focus on maintaining the best form and technique possible through every working set and every working rep. With that being said, you do want to lift heavy. You do want to like stimulate strength gains. You're not going to get very strong if you're lifting light weights only. Like I don't want to hate on the people that use those little 3-pound pink dumbbells, but if you're trying to be a dangerously strong grappling athlete, you're not going to get very strong lifting those 3-pound pink dumbbells. Like you actually got to lift some heavy ass weight to get strong. So 2 to 4 compound lifts per workout, 4 to 6 sets of 4 to 6 reps. You want to lift with proper form and technique. You want to lift decently heavy, but stay within like 1 to 2 reps away from failure on every set. And what that means is like if you're doing a set of 6 on a horizontal pressing movement like dumbbell bench press, you're doing a set of 6. You hit the 5th rep, you're like, dang, that was really tough. You hit the 6th rep, you're like, oh man, that's crazy tough. And then you're holding the dumbbells and you're thinking like, I could probably get only 1 more rep. That's it. If I did 1 more rep, that's it. If I went for 1 more after that, I'd probably drop the dumbbells on my face. If that's that point that you've reached, you're done with the set. So try to keep 1 to 2 reps in reserve every single set. And then the last thing I would recommend is feel free to rest as needed between sets. You don't need to take like an excessively long rest. At least you shouldn't have to. Like I don't need you to rest like 5 to 10 minutes between sets. Like that's kind of ridiculous. But you just want to rest long enough to try to like get your breathing back under control, regain your composure, and rest long enough to the point where you feel like you can get another really good set. So if you're doing, like we'll keep it simple. 5 sets of 5. That's within 4 to 6 sets of 4 to 6 reps, right? So you're doing 5 sets of 5 on, let's pick a different exercise. You're doing 5 sets of 5 of chest-supported dumbbell rows. And you're going pretty heavy. You're still staying within 1 to 2 reps away from failure, but it's challenging. So you do the set, you put the dumbbells down. If you rested 10 seconds and then tried to pick up the dumbbells again, you probably wouldn't even be able to get 5 reps if you're really training hard. If you rested 30 seconds, I mean, maybe you might be able to do that, but to keep that up for 5 total sets is going to be really, really difficult. So I say all that because people will ask like, hey, how long do I rest between sets? Or like, what's the ideal rest period? And there's a time and place for structured rest periods. There's a time and place to have prescribed rest, but I think for the basic strength template, just rest as needed between sets. Typically for me, like I try to do about a 2-minute rest between every set. Maybe if I'm feeling really, tired or like a set was really difficult, I'll rest upwards of 3 minutes, but very rarely do I rest longer than 3 minutes. After about 3 minutes, I feel like I'm good to go on the next set. Now, let's move into the basic speed and explosive power template. The way we train for speed and explosive power is going to look very different than how we train for basic strength. I talked about how strength is the foundation, right, of this athletic pyramid. Speed and explosive power, I don't want to say is like at the top of the list or anything like that, but it's something that is good to have as part of your foundation of athleticism. Jiu Jitsu in particular is not the most explosive sport in the world, but that doesn't mean that we should ignore explosive power training, because in different scrambles and different flurries of movement, we still need to be able to be fast and be explosive when it's required of us. If you're someone who's a wrestler, that is a very explosive sport. Like that's a much more explosive sport than Jiu Jitsu. If you're a MMA fighter, judo athlete, those tend to be more explosive than Jiu Jitsu as well. But regardless of what kind of combat sport athlete you are, it's a really, really good idea for your overall athletic longevity that you always kind of sprinkle in some speed and explosive power work into your workouts. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, but for this basic speed and explosive power template, what I would recommend is that you mix in some low intensity plyometrics into your warm-up. So for like a lower body day, you could do jump rope, you could do standing hops, you could do, those are like pretty low intensity. You could try to find some other low intensity plyometrics. For the upper body, you could do different things like drop catches with a baseball or a tennis ball. So like basically, I have a lot of athletes do this when they're traveling or working out at home. So like grab like a water bottle or like a baseball or something, let go, hold the baseball up at shoulder height, let go, and then reach down and try to catch it as fast as you can. It's not gonna give you like a crazy burn or anything like that, but it is training your brain and your nervous system to get really good at firing those motor units and muscle fibers really, really fast and explosively to be able to, let go of something, watch it fall, boom, and try to catch it right away. So I would include or suggest that you include some low intensity plyometric exercises into your warm-ups for both your upper body and your lower body workouts. When it comes to how often you should be doing this, you could basically do this every single workout. You don't have to, but I'd say at least half of your workouts should include some sort of speed and explosive power component. So if you're doing 2 workouts a week, it's only 2 workouts, so I would say at least all of those workouts do some speed and explosive power work. If you're going to the gym 4 to 5 times a week, you probably don't need to do something that's super fast and explosive for all 4 or 5 of those workouts, but I'd say 2 to 3 of those workouts should include some speed and explosive power work. Some other things you can do throughout the workout would be 1 to 2 exercises where you're lifting some heavy weights really, really fast and being violently explosive with it. So that could be kettlebell swings, that could be med ball slams, that could be, if you have access to a sled that you can push, that could be like some real crazy sled pushes. You could do some of the standard strength exercises or movement patterns that we talked about and do those with an explosive power spin on them. So you can do speed squats, hip hinging movements that are really explosive, lunges that are really explosive. That's not, I wouldn't suggest that you necessarily load up a barbell and do jump squats right away, because as you start to get more explosive with those movements, there is a skill component with how you do those movements explosively and in a safe way. And if you're brand new to training in the gym or you're new to this style of training, I try to pick exercises for athletes that are new to this stuff that are pretty, they just don't have a high learning curve, right? So like really dialing in your squat. If you're gonna do like a squat with bands and chains, it's like you've got to really know how to squat well if you're going to be able to add that into your workout. However, if you don't know how to squat well with a barbell, but you still want to do some explosive squatting movements, you can do a seated box jump. You can do a seated vertical jump. You could do jump squats. You could do med ball jump throws where you like squat down, jump forward in a broad jump, and then throw the med ball forward as hard as you can. So just to review, basic speed and explosive power blueprint is going to be almost every single workout, at least half or more of your workouts, sprinkle in some low intensity plyometrics into your warm-ups. And then for each workout, try to add 1 to 2 explosive movements where you're moving a good amount of weight. So like kettlebell swings, med ball slams, all that stuff. And how that kind of fits in with the strength work is, you know, when people ask me, you know, hey, Coach Jay, how many days a week should I lift for jiu-jitsu? I usually reply with the exact same thing, where I say, lift as many days as you can every single week, just as long as it doesn't negatively impact your jiu-jitsu training. And for most grapplers that I've worked with over the years, I've found that that sweet spot tends to be between 2 to 4 workouts per week. If you're doing 2 workouts per week, I highly suggest just making them both full body workouts. If you're doing upwards of 4 workouts per week, you could do an upper lower split. You could make them all full body. It's just up to you on what you want to do. But how I would structure these workouts, I'm a huge fan personally of full body workouts. And so say you're doing 3 workouts per week, you could do a full body workout that's strength focused on day 1. You could do another full body workout that's strength focused on day 2, but maybe you change things up a little bit. So for your 2 to 4 compound lifts on day 1, so you do a squat for the lower body, you do a lunge for the lower body, you do a horizontal press, and a horizontal pull. So you do Zercher squats, 4 to 6 sets, 4 to 6 reps, dumbbell walking lunges, 4 to 6 sets, 4 to 6 reps. You do a horizontal press, so let's say you do dumbbell bench press, 4 to 6 sets, 4 to 6 reps, and then you do some chest-supported dumbbell rows, 4 to 6 sets, 4 to 6 reps. And in that warm-up, you would have sprinkled in your speed and explosive power work. On day 2, you could take the exact same format, doing a full body workout, but just change up the movement patterns. So on day 1, we did squats and lunges. That means on day 2, we're gonna change it up. Let's do hip hinges, and let's also get a little bit of rotation in there. 4 to 6 sets, 4 to 6 reps. So for the hip hinge, say we do a trap bar deadlift, and then for rotation, say we do a cable trunk rotation. For the upper body, we do vertical pressing, vertical pulling. So that could look like a dumbbell Z press followed by pull-ups. There you go. 4 to 6 sets, 4 to 6 reps for all those exercises. You're good to go on day 2. And then moving into day 3. If day 3 could really be a day where you do most of your speed and explosive power work for the entire body. You would have gotten a little bit of speed and explosive power work in your warm-ups on days 1 and 2, but day 3 is really the day where that entire workout is focused on speed and explosive power. So that could look like we're going to do something for the lower body where we do seated vertical jumps. For the upper body, we do plyo push-ups. Say we go back to the lower body and do something like a broad jump or a kettlebell swing. And then again, for the upper body, we do something like a medicine ball slam. That's a really awesome template that you can follow 3 days per week, basic strength template, basic speed and explosive power template. If you follow that for 12 weeks, I guarantee you're gonna see some pretty fantastic results to your athleticism on the mat. I guarantee it. Now, next thing that I wanted to talk about is hypertrophy and conditioning. So when we talk about hypertrophy, it is a little bit different than strength. Strength training is really about improving your ability to produce force. Anytime we do anything, when I'm moving my hands like this, when I'm talking in this podcast, whether I'm running through on a blast double, whether you are listening to this and you're lifting right now or you're training at Jiu Jitsu, you probably don't want to listen to this podcast while you're training at Jiu Jitsu. That kind of kill the vibe a little bit. Probably want to put on like some Tupac or some Spirit Box or something like that. But anytime you're doing any athletic endeavor, you're producing force. Like that's what our muscles are used for, to produce force. And as we're training to get stronger, really what we're doing is improving our ability to produce force. Hypertrophy training, on the other hand, is strategically training to grow new muscle tissue and increase in muscle size. And there is a little bit of crossover between what we do to develop strength and what we do to build new muscle, but I do try to keep them a little bit separated so that way the signals don't get mixed too much. Or not that the signals get mixed too much, but that way there's just clear definitions of like, hey, this is what we consider to be strength work, and this is what we consider to be hypertrophy work. So as far as like a basic hypertrophy or basic muscle building template would go, really I would suggest picking 2 to 4 single joint accessory lifts that you just tack on at the end of a workout. So say you do one of the workouts that I just mentioned for basic strength and basic speed and explosive power. If you got some extra time, at the end of any one of those workouts, you can just tack on 2 to 4 single joint accessory lifts. Try to find something that feels pretty good on your joints. Like if certain exercises just like chew up your elbows, you don't have to do those. You can pick another exercise for your triceps that doesn't bang up your elbows. But pick 2 to 4 single joint accessory lifts. The goal would be to do 3 to 5 sets of 8 to 15 reps. And we want to keep rest periods somewhat short, not so short that we can't get good quality sets from one set to the next, but we do want to keep that pump. A huge component of hypertrophy training is getting pretty close to failure, like staying within 1 to 2 reps away from failure, kind of grinding, applying lots of mechanical tension on that muscle. But another component of hypertrophy training is chasing that pump. So we're going to be doing a little bit more reps than what we would do for a typical strength workout, and we're going to be taking a little bit less rest period, or a little bit shorter rest periods compared to what we would for a typical strength workout. And again, this basic hypertrophy template can kind of just be tacked on to the workouts that you do for basic strength and basic speed and explosive power. But you could also just make a full workout all about hypertrophy. So instead of only doing 2 to 4 exercise or single joint exercise accessory lifts, you could do like a full workout of 4 to 8 exercises that are all focused on hypertrophy. Every exercise you're chasing a wicked pump. Every exercise you're doing 3 to 5 working sets of 8 to 15 reps, and you're really going in with the intention to stimulate muscle growth as much as possible. Now, the last athletic quality that we got to talk about is conditioning. There's so many different ways that you can develop conditioning, and what's interesting is that conditioning kind of has it is a little bit built in to how we train jiu-jitsu. Like if you're rolling hard multiple times per week, you're working on conditioning. If you are not taking rounds off, if you're picking tough training partners, like you're going to develop at least a little bit some aspects of your gas tank, but that shouldn't be the only thing that we do for our gas tank. I think I made this mistake early on where I didn't do any conditioning work and I just rolled hard. And I think for a while that worked, mainly because my skill level was pretty low. So it's like I'm fighting as hard as I can, and I'm not even good enough to like reserve energy per se. But now that I'm a little bit better at jiu-jitsu, I do find myself kind of getting in these positions where it's like I don't need to move right now, so I'm not going to. Or I'm gonna kind of like hold this line or hold this position and wait, and not that I'm waiting, but try to establish a lot of control here and slow the match down or slow the round down, so that way I can move into a more dominant, like slowly move into a more dominant position. And so what results of that is that I don't always get a good conditioning stimulus at jiu-jitsu, depending on who I'm training with. And so that's why it's still important to develop your conditioning off the mat as well. And here's a basic blueprint for conditioning that I would recommend. I'd say 1 to 2 times per week, work on your aerobic or oxidative conditioning. So when we talk about conditioning, we have three main energy systems. Well, let me break that down. We have two categories of energy systems. We have anaerobic and aerobic. And then within those two categories, on the anaerobic side, we have alactic and lactic. And then on the aerobic side, we have oxidative. And so those are just kind of like the fancy names for the energy systems. But one way we can look at this is like alactic conditioning, or the alactic energy system, is all stuff that's super, super violently explosive in really, really short bursts. So you rip a heavy deadlift off the floor, you run a blast double on somebody, you do a box jump, that is all part of your alactic energy system. Things in the lactic energy system are still they're still pretty high intensity, but they're gonna take a little bit longer duration. So long scrambles, doing a set of 20 on squats is definitely gonna tax your lactic conditioning energy system, stuff like that. Once we kind of cross over into more sustained effort for multiple minutes at a time, that's when we start to get a little bit more into that aerobic or oxidative energy system. And that oxidative or aerobic energy system is going to lay the foundation of your conditioning. Kind of like how we talked about earlier, how strength is kind of like the bedrock of all athletic qualities. Close to that foundation of all athletic qualities and work capacity, or close to that foundation of athleticism, is aerobic conditioning and work capacity. So a basic conditioning blueprint that I would recommend is mixing in 1 to 2 times per week some aerobic or oxidative conditioning. And this could just be 20 to 40 minutes of steady state cardio. You could call it zone 2 cardio. I'm not a huge, when I prescribe like zone 2 cardio, I'm not a stickler for heart rate or anything like that. I mostly go off of a feeling. So like, go at a point, whether you're running, you're dragging a sled, carrying a rucksack, whatever you're doing, do it at a pace that you can maintain while nasal breathing the entire time. That's a really good litmus test of like, hey, am I in this, aerobic zone, this lower intensity aerobic zone that's really going to build out that foundation of aerobic capacity and oxidative conditioning. 20 to 40 minutes is really all you need to get started, doing that 1 to 2 times per week. And you don't have to run. I know a lot of people talk about like, oh, I'm doing my zone 2 run and all that. Like, zone 2 running is great, but you don't have to run. You could do tons of other stuff that contributes to your aerobic conditioning. So just something to keep in mind. I would not suggest doing that in the same workout as your strength, power, or hypertrophy work. I would reserve that for a separate day. Not to say that if you do like aerobic conditioning and strength work in the same workout, that it's necessarily a bad thing, but we don't want to mix signals in that sense. And when we create a training stimulus for our body, we want our body to dedicate as much resources as possible to making adaptations to that stimulus. So if I'm doing really, really heavy bicep curls, I'm just thinking like, man, as soon as I'm done doing these bicep curls, I want my body to put all the resources towards building my biceps. If I do a whole bunch of bicep curls and then I go run a marathon afterwards, the signal that I'm sending to my body is, hey, we just did all this bicep work, but we also ran for 26.2 miles. So we need to recover. So let's spend half of our resources recovering and adapting to the marathon, the other half adapting and recovering from the bicep work. Not that it's literally 50-50, but you get what I'm saying. I want to get the best training stimulus possible for strength and explosive power. I want to get the best training stimulus possible for strength and hypertrophy. In a separate session, I want to get the best training stimulus possible for conditioning. So if you're going to be doing these oxidative conditioning workouts, 20 to 40 minutes of lower intensity, steady state cardio, focusing on nasal breathing the entire time. If you're going to be doing that 1 to 2 times per week, I'd strongly suggest making that a separate training session and keeping that somewhat far away from your strength and hypertrophy work. Now, how do we add this all into our training week? It can be a little bit daunting if you're doing jiu-jitsu multiple times per week and you're feeling a little bit banged up and you're like, man, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't know how I'm going to get all that stuff done. Like I said a little bit ago, I think that every grappling athlete should lift as many days as possible every single week, just as long as it doesn't negatively impact their jiu-jitsu training. And again, the average that I found to work best for most grapplers is somewhere between 2 to 4 strength workouts, or I should say strength and conditioning workouts per week. If you're doing a lot of jiu-jitsu, that means you probably have a little bit less time to be going to the gym. So if you go to jiu-jitsu 6 days a week, like you can probably only handle like 2 really, really good workouts per week. And you're gonna have to do those on days that you go to jiu-jitsu. If you only go to jiu-jitsu twice a week, like what I'm currently doing right now, you have a lot more time to be going to the gym and still be able to recover for jiu-jitsu. So like right now, I go to the gym about 4 days a week, mainly because my jiu-jitsu training volume is pretty low. But in other seasons of life where jiu-jitsu picks up, the gym starts to drop down a little bit. So it is gonna change a little bit from person to person, and you listening to this might be thinking like, okay, like I got jiu-jitsu on this day, and maybe I could squeeze in the gym over here. Regardless of how you want to set it up, just do whatever works best for you. And I would suggest one last thing. I would strongly suggest that you try to separate your highest intensity training sessions by about 48 to 72 hours. So if you know that like, hey, I have a really, really big strength and hypertrophy workout on Monday, I would not suggest also doing your hardest sparring at jiu-jitsu on Tuesday, where you go from like one crazy, crazy tough workout and then one crazy, crazy open mat jiu-jitsu sparring session, comp rounds, everyday pohada, all that stuff on Tuesday. Try to have a little bit of space between those sessions to give your body plenty of time to recover. So what that would look like would be like, okay, I'm gonna do my really, really hard workout on Monday. I can still go to jiu-jitsu on Tuesday, but I'm just intentionally gonna dial the intensity back a little bit. I'm maybe gonna, take things a little bit slower. Maybe I don't roll every single round, or maybe I work with someone who is not going to just like completely obliterate me the entire time. That's going to be on Tuesday. On Wednesday, you might be feeling pretty good, and that might be the day where you want to strike while the iron's hot and do a hard jiu-jitsu session. So we want to try to separate those highest stimulus or those highest intensity training sessions by about 48 to 72 hours. And again, that's all assuming that you're still getting in about 2 to 4 strength and conditioning sessions per week. So that is the simple grappling strength blueprint that I just laid out for you. Again, this is the exact blueprint that is the kind of like the inspiration that is the Grappler Accelerator training program. When I talk about helping grapplers kickstart their grappling athleticism in 30 days, it really is because of this simple jiu-jitsu strength blueprint. You can check out that training program at thestrengthmatrix.com/grappler. It's 100% free. And we do have a question from someone in the Strength Matrix community, in the Strength Matrix lab. The Strength Matrix is my training app. We have tons of different training programs, different courses on there. Really the goal for the Strength Matrix is to help you get brutally strong, pack on slabs of muscle, and never gas out. We got a question from my dog, AJ. AJ says, let's see, what did AJ say? What we got here? AJ says, any thoughts on swimming as cardio? This is so interesting because I just saw a video on YouTube last week, or maybe it was earlier this week. There was a video on YouTube about jiu-jitsu conditioning, and I was reading through some of the comments, and not that there's some stuff that in this video I agreed with, and other stuff in this video that I was like, I don't know about that, but I'm hoping to have my mind changed. And someone asked the same question on their YouTube channel. They said, what do you think about swimming for grappling cardio? And their response was like, swimming is the worst form of grappling cardio that you could possibly do. And I was thinking like, what? That's crazy. That's like, it's a pretty hot take, and I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that. Every single training modality, every single exercise, every single training method, none of it is good or bad. It's just appropriate or inappropriate for your training needs as an athlete. And so swimming as a form of conditioning has a lot of pros and cons. One thing that I think is really cool about swimming is that it is zero impact. If you go for a 60-minute run and you've never run before or you haven't run in a long time, your knees, your ankles, your hips, they're gonna be pretty chewed up. You go swim for an hour or hang out, like play around in the pool for an hour, or train, I should say, in the pool for an hour, you might be pretty fatigued afterwards. You might be a little bit sore, but you're not gonna be nearly as banged up as you would if you did 60 minutes going for a run on hard pavement or anything like that. So I think from a wear and tear perspective, swimming can be a fantastic approach and a fantastic modality to develop someone's conditioning. One thing that is interesting about swimming is that depending on how efficient you are as a swimmer, you kind of get some different benefits out of it. So if you're someone like me, like I can swim, but I'm not a very efficient swimmer. So even me swimming laps, like I gas out so easily because I'm not very efficient. My dad, on the other hand, my dad grew up swimming. He was a great swimmer, still is a fantastic swimmer. When he swims, we could swim the exact same lap or the exact same distance, and I'm gonna be absolutely exhausted, and he's not, because he is a more efficient swimmer. If we were to do Jiu Jitsu for the same duration of time that we were swimming, I know that he would be exhausted because he's not a grappling athlete. He's not a very efficient grappler. So there is a little bit of an asterisk next to swimming. If you're someone that has like very poor experience swimming, it's going to be hard to keep, like if the goal was to work on oxidative conditioning, where you want to do 20 to 40 minutes of steady state cardio at a lower intensity. If you're not a great swimmer, you're probably not going to be able to match that intention for the workout because your inefficiencies as a swimmer are going to make it really, really tough for you to keep the intensity low. You're going to gas out pretty quick. However, if you are a really good swimmer and you're very experienced and you have efficient swimming mechanics and all that stuff, you can definitely go into the pool and be like, yeah, I'm just going to swim for about 20 to 40 minutes, keep the intensity pretty low. In swimming, you can't nasal breathe because you drown. So you definitely have to breathe through your mouth a little bit, but that's okay. But because of your skills as a swimmer, you can have a little bit more of an effective time working on that oxidative conditioning. If you're not an efficient swimmer and you want to work on some alactic or lactic conditioning, you could probably get a good training stimulus doing that. The other thing that I like about swimming is that it's just something different, Like how many grapplers are swimming laps for conditioning? I don't know. The only person I know that was swimming laps for jiu-jitsu conditioning, I think, was Eddie Bravo. I don't know if he was swimming laps or if he was doing something else, but I remember listening to him a long time ago, like when I first started training jiu-jitsu, then he had that match with Royler Gracie, the rematch. He was talking about how he was doing cardio work for that match, and I want to say that he was swimming laps. I don't know if that's a fact. Maybe it is. Who knows? But I think swimming could be a fantastic form of conditioning for grappling athletes if they have access to a pool. With all that being said, that's a fantastic question. AJ, thanks for holding it down for the Strength Matrix crew. If you guys have questions about anything that we talked about in today's podcast or any other podcast I've done, be sure to drop them in the comments below. I try to get back and answer everybody's question when possible. And if the question is good enough or it's like about a really interesting topic, I may just turn that question into a full podcast episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys want to kickstart your grappling athleticism in the next 30 days, check out the free Grappler Accelerator training program at thestrengthmatrix.com/grappler. Lift heavy, roll hard. Catch y'all later. Peace.